characters. But I think this is where the show, and I can't wait to hear you guys' thoughts on this. So as we kind of go through, we get more of the dramatic beats. We see Sam and Bucky on the plane talking. We should just steal the shield, Sam. Sam's like, dude, no, we're not stealing that. You know what happened last time? Sharon was a fugitive. Me and Steve are on the run. We're not doing that. He tells him, I want you to meet someone. So we go to Baltimore. I love this. I don't know how this joke worked for you, Brandon, and everyone on the panel. The Black Falcon. My dad calls you Black Falcon. Well, should I call you Black Kid? Did that joke work for everyone, or was it just too on the nose?
I liked it. It was cool.
Tessa, was it a good joke for you?
I enjoyed it. I like all the jokes though.
I know, and this is gonna get Tessa here. Ralph Boner. I know that's your number one joke in this year.
I giggle every time. I can't. It's
Chris,
so funny.
Chris, what about you? The Black joke. Did it work? Black Falcon.
You know me. I wanted to hate on the scene. I was like, but what got me is when he told his friend, yeah, I got that.
Got him.
And I was like, okay, this is a human here.
Yeah. But and enough of the jokes here, because this is where we get serious, right? I can't wait to have this discussion with you all. As we see, they approach this door, which by the way, that is Elijah Bradley, who opens the door, which Tessa talked about a little bit earlier. This is very similar to WandaVision, introducing a potential young Avenger. Eli Bradley in the comics is a patriot, or he goes by the mantra of patriot, which he is someone that has some super strength and some super abilities, and we'll see if his grandfather, if his genes is passed down to, him being a super soldier, if that's passed down from generation, and he might have some abilities of his own. But nonetheless, we get a really good moment here, a quiet moment. And again, starting with you, Chris, how did you take in this scene, man? We meet, which Carl Lumley, by the way, was just perfect in this scene. And I hope we get more of him in the show, or maybe in future MCU projects. But we get the reveal that he was, once Cap was gone, under ice. And, we have this experiments on Black people. We have experiment on him becoming the Captain America. He fights Bucky and beats him, which I would love a flashback of that scene some way, somehow, that fight between them two. But he gives us a moment here, and this just broke my heart when he says, I was in jail for 30 years. They were testing on me, taking my blood, which explains how the serum was continuing to go on. But before we get into the cop scene, what did you take in with this scene, Chris, regarding the introduction to Isaiah Bradley, and would you like to see more from this character?
Yeah, for sure. Ever since you and Mike were talking about, the original Black Captain America with Isaiah, I was really interested to see if they brought it into this series, and I'm glad that they did. I think this is probably my favorite scene of the show so far. I thought it was done well. It's nothing like, it wasn't cheesy, and everything was realistic.
No jokes at all.
No jokes. The grandson was very protective. I like the little, tell him this little moment of this moment in this bar. No, let him in. I thought it was dope. This dude threw whatever that shit was into the wall, so you get a little flash that this dude still has powers, but like still has a lot of pain from fucking 30 years. It's a lot of time.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really excited to see where they take this. But for me, it was all done very well for me.
I agree with you there. Tessa, how did you take in the scene meeting Isaiah? I did not expect him to be into the story this early, but as Chris was alluding to, we've been talking about it for weeks now in regards to Isaiah Bradley and his connection to Captain America. I think it was inevitable that he was going to appear, but how did you take in this scene? And again, he has a lot of pain, he has a lot of trauma. He was in jail for 30 years, which is crazy. But your take on this moment here?
That is crazy. 30 years is so long. I really seriously thought this was going to be something that would be towards the final 1 or 2 episodes. I didn't think it would be this early. Mm-hmm. So that gives me hope, though, that maybe we're going to see more of it. And the grandson thing, like I said, it didn't hit me until like the second watch. And then I was like, wait a minute, that's got to be Eli. Like, has to be. I love how protective he was, and how at first he's like, nope, there's no one here by that name. I don't know what you're talking about. Again, talking about the fight that he had with Bucky, took half his arm. I wanted to see if it grew back.
Scene. Like, I want to see that, man.
I would love to see that. So I thought it was very well done. No jokes needed. Glad they kept away from that. Yeah. And I really hope we get more. I think we will. If this had come later in the season, I would be, maybe we won't. But I just hopefully in something in the future, especially if we do get a Young Avengers with Eli, maybe.
Yeah, and I think to that point, if we don't, which I hope we do, get more of Carl Lumley, that could be a through line for, you know, Eli, the mentor, his grandfather. There are more discussions. We might actually get that flashback of him fighting Bucky potentially if they get like a Young Avengers TV show, which I think they're going to use Young Avengers like they did the Defenders on Netflix. We're going to probably get a Young Avengers show in like 2 years, but we'll see. Brandon, man, we get Carl Lumley, man, just small, like 5-minute scene, but an impactful scene. He's a DC guy, ladies and gentlemen. Carl Lumley is a fantastic actor, stage actor, movie actor, voice actor. He does a lot of DC projects. He's Martian the Manhunter in one of the animated shows. So he knows his comics. So I was glad that he was cast in this role. But how did you take in this moment and just the idea of him being the Black Captain America, thrown under the bus, not even brought up? You know, no one knows about the history, which again, ties into the parallels of the real world, but just your take on this sequence here, man.
Man, he killed it. This was absolutely perfect. And I got to be honest with you guys. Isaiah and Eli Bradley are comic book characters that I'm just not too familiar with. You know, I've heard of them before, but I don't know them as much as everyone else. But now that this has been showcased, you know, I'm diving deep, trying to learn everything I can. I would love to see a flashback scene between him whooping Bucky's ass. That would be so dope, especially given what they met in 1951. Hell yeah! Yep. Like, please, like, what do I have to sign up? You can have my money, Disney.
Take my money.
Just let me know. But like you guys were saying, I agree. I love how Eli was so protective of his grandfather, just unapologetic about it. Like, y'all not getting in this house. You can leave now. You know, I thought that was done very, very well. And I mean, this scene was just also heartbreaking. You know, I know that when he was recruited, they, you know, recruited like 300 other soldiers as well. And this reminded me of the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. You know, that's just kind of what I think that's what it was motivated from.
In the comics,
Let's say, correct me if I'm wrong. So that, I mean, and just the performance itself was just phenomenal. Like, just his body language and posture. When he stood up and he's like, you know what happened to me for being a hero? Like, you know, he just like this, the tone of his voice, his mannerisms, like, you know, you have the audacity to come at me this way. I felt it all. It was a very, very powerful scene. You know, it struck me emotionally. And, you know, I feel sorry for Sam because he didn't know, you know, he's trying to empathize with him, just like, you know, like, you know, Isaiah. And that's when he got upset and threw him out the house. But it would be a crime if we did not get more of these characters, in any, whether it's present or modern day or a flashback or preferably both. But I want to see more. This scene was perfect. It was my favorite of the episode.
Well said, man. I think for those out there that want to learn more about Isaiah Bradley, I think it was a 7-issue run. I believe it was titled Truth, Red, White, and Black, which really kind of explores, again, what Brandon alluded to, them testing on 300 African Americans and you know, the super soldier serum and all that stuff. So definitely he's an interesting character. And hell, dude, I wouldn't be surprised, you know, with announcements of, I think they announced earlier this week that Echo from Hawkeye, which I'm not too familiar with that character, might get a spinoff show. I would love a spinoff Isaiah Bradley, you know, Elijah Bradley type of show, if, you know, kind of in the vein of a Wakanda spinoff and things of that nature. That would be really cool if they explore, because it's a great issue. He's a great character and there's a lot of history there. So I think there's definitely a lot of potentiality of that character moving on in the MCU. But they follow that up with another, again, the jokes were on pause for a bit, ladies and gentlemen. We go into another scene here, which kind of ties into, again, this is something that Marvel has never really done in the MCU before, which is kind of tie into circumstances that we can relate to in the real world, right? I love me some Marvel. I love to escape, you know, go into a theater in a dark room and you don't have to worry about your problems. You're in space, you're in the water. But we see Bucky and Sam having a conversation. Why haven't you told me about this? You know, and we get the cops that pull up, the Baltimore cops, and we get a moment that we've seen a million times in the age of social media, how it plays out. So a white person, black person get into a conversation. The black person immediately is the aggressor. The cops say, "We're not talking to you, Sam. We're talking to him. Are you okay, sir? Is he bothering you?" And we get that moment. So I know this scene, again, some people want to escape from realism. They don't want real world circumstances in their movies and shows. That's not me personally, but I get it if some people don't. But hey, Chris, man, we talked about it last week with Marvel tackling, you know, racism, discrimination. We got that last week with the bank scene, and we continue that with this show. Your take, man, on that moment of Sam and Bucky encountering the Baltimore police?
like maybe change the world, and then maybe we won't have to see the world on TV. So like, I don't really care what they say about seeing the police arrest black people. Okay, this scene is weird. It was like someone at Disney said, "Look, we need a Black Lives Matter scene with the police. What could we do?" First of all, I don't know a lot about Baltimore, but what I do know is the hood. They're black people everywhere. So like, it's one thing if like, you know, Sam's in like some neighborhood he's not supposed to be in.
Rich neighborhood. Yeah.
These dudes are in the hood. These black kids are out there outside playing. These kids are just hanging out. Their families feel safe enough to let the kids sit outside and whatever and talk to strangers. Yeah. Number one. Number two, these motherfuckers are standing in the street for 2 seconds just talking. Not like, because they could have been like having an argument. They could have gotten into a pushing fight. Why didn't you tell me? Yeah. And then the cop says, "What the hell are you guys doing? Why are you guys pushing that white guy?" Okay, cool. Maybe that's something. They're just standing there. So it's like they just kind of threw it in. Like, yes, I'm happy to talk about Black Lives Matter in Marvel. I don't care if you're offended. If you're tired of seeing it on the news and your Marvel shows, deal with it. Stop killing us, then maybe we could take it out of this fucking thing. But don't make it cheap, because then it's like you're wasting your opportunity. Like, everyone's watching this. Everyone's going to talk about this. So don't cheapen it. Because then people will say, "Oh, that's not realistic." I mean, of course. Could that have happened? Yes, I'm sure. Yeah. But like, if it's a TV show, you can make anything happen. Like, sure. Like all the illegal shit that they have to really do as a team of like Avengers, like you choose a moment of them just talking in the street, and then it's like you get the whole like, you know, I get the whole point of like showing, yo, that's the Falcon, bro. Like, relax. You know, showing like, okay, if I'm LeBron James, but you don't recognize me, like I'm gonna get off because I'm fucking LeBron James. But if I was Chris Tate, I'm going to jail. So I get that point of like that whole scene, but like just the setup of it, I was like, come on, like it was, to me personally, my personal opinion, to steal Brandon's slogan. I was like, I see what's happening here.
And this is why I want to have this discussion. I knew this scene was going to maybe be a little bit hot and cold in regards to how it was received. Again, we know this is Disney. We live in a time now where I don't want to say pandering, but there is certain companies and certain things, there's certain agendas, there's certain things you have to check off the box to kind of present in a certain way. And this is Disney, by the way. This is not a low-end company, A24 making a show. Yeah. Right. This is Disney. So like they have shareholders that stand on, and not to get too political, but there are shareholders that might feel, that are Democrats, that are Republican, that might feel a little bit uncomfortable with this scene. But the fact that they put it in there, it is interesting to see how it's played out. And I think it speaks to last week's bank scene, right? In regards to the guy, "Oh, let me take a picture with you. You need a loan? I'm not going to give you that, but let me get a selfie with you." And this is very similar, like you just mentioned. You know, it's almost like if LeBron James, if he's not wearing his jersey, he's just a black guy playing basketball. But when he's in his jersey, he's the best player in the world, right? And he's King James at that point. So Tessa, tossing it to you regarding the handling of social commentary thus far in the show. Has it set with you, right? Is it not being handled correctly? Just kind of your take on this sequence here.
Yeah, well, and like you said, he's like, "Oh, I didn't recognize you without the goggles." Was kind of like, what?
Yeah.
I feel like I can't speak like you guys can, but for me, like I'm glad that they're bringing this stuff up and they're mentioning it. And anybody who says, like, I got a lot of comments of people like they shouldn't even have this in here, and it's like, why? Because I love that they take stuff that from the real world and they're like, hey, like this is happening, and it gets it out to more people. Even if people are going to complain, whatever, people complain about everything. So, but I did feel like that scene was it was almost like, wait, where did the cops come from? It felt very abrupt, and I did feel like it was kind of stuck in there. Yeah, it was very like, it didn't feel like they weren't really fighting. Like Chris said, they're just talking, and then they come up, and then but I was just glad that it was something that they're putting in there, and I'm glad they're putting it out there, though it does feel a little manufactured. Still glad it's out there, but
and I totally
they can do better.
I think because it follows that scene with Isaiah, and then it follows it up with another scene. It does feel like, you know, it is kind of just forced drama just to have it there. But tossing it to you, Brandon, again, this is what Captain America is about, ladies and gentlemen. Again, like you just mentioned, Tessa, regarding comments like, "Oh, I don't want to see this." Well, you don't like Captain America because literally in the comics, this is Isaiah Bradley's introducing that racism's in Captain America, government taking advantage of people. This is what Captain America is all about, and this is why I love what they've done to Captain America in the MCU and kind of the realism of the world of per se. But Brandon, man, let's hear it, bro. Let's hear your opinion on this particular scene. Did it work, or did it feel a little bit too? Was it cheapened a little bit? Maybe feeling like an agenda to be had.
Well, before I answer that, I just want to say real quick. I think it's kind of silly when people say like, "Oh, I don't want to see this. It doesn't belong."
Yep.
Whatever. But I understand what they were trying to do with this scene. But this was awful. This was a horrible setup. This scene right here. I mean, this was the most shoehorned scene in the entire MCU. And Chris, like you were saying, could this happen? Yes, it could happen. But just the execution was ridiculous. Like it just wasn't realistic to me. Like their location just being a predominantly black neighborhood, and they weren't fighting. I mean, they should have just stressed it out a bit more. It did come off forced. It came off manufactured. Like y'all said, checking the box, like let's have our Black Lives Matter moment.
Yeah.
And of course I understand Sam's reaction, and I'm not giving them shit. And people may feel. I have different opinions on that, but the scene just didn't work for me. It was very forced, and just didn't feel real at all.
Like they had to get to Baltimore. Like they can't just be speeding on the way home and then like they just pull over. Like there's something like why? Yeah, you would pull over a black guy for speeding in this neighborhood, and then we have this conversation. Like just almost any other way. Like don't give black people a chance to be like. Then they're gonna say like, oh well, we put it in there, and then like, no, it's not what the fuck we wanted. Then they're like, oh well, they're never happy. Oh no, we're happy, but this is fucking not good.
And the thing is that kind of concerns me because the writer Malcolm Spellman is a black guy, and
you got the chance to interview him too, which you did a great job in that interview. Yeah, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I did, and I just it kind of seems like we've only seen 2 episodes, but there may be some type of I don't want to say conflict, but the creative vision is not melding the way I want it to between the director and the writer. It's just a feeling I have. I have nothing to really back that up with. It's just a feeling, a gut feeling. I could be completely wrong. It's just how I feel, but just because I feel some way doesn't mean I'm right. So I could be wrong. But I when I saw this scene, I'm like, wait a minute, dude. Like, when I've seen you before, it seems like you would have a good understanding of how to flesh a scene like this out. So I don't get it, but that scene was bad. I rolled my eyes heavily as it was taking place.
Then we also don't know, like, sorry. Then we also don't know. We also don't know if he did write it differently, and then Disney
or
says,
editing, or
it was too real. This is too real, right? Because I mean, there is a moment, not to get dark and wouldn't have you, but the cop reaches for his gun, and I was thinking, like, is the MCU going like down that path? Which they stopped, but definitely there's some moments where you can kind of see there might have been some restraints there, some editing that could have just been a little bit too real.
I mean, of course, we know there's some trigger happy cops out there will put their hand on their weapon if you sneeze or blink, but still. So I want to just say that's impossible, but it just was bad, man. It was just like, what is this? Like, come on, like don't patronize me. You know what I'm saying? Like ooh, we got some black stuff, like
especially right after the most powerful scene.
Right after that scene,
don't wash it away with this.
But exactly.
Yeah, it's and this is the conversation I want to have, and I thank my panelists for diving into it and sharing their thoughts on it, and everyone in the chat as well too. And it would have been just not to rewrite the scene, but knowing that they had said that Bucky, you're arrested because you didn't go to your therapist. That could have been the reason why they were maybe looking for them on the streets. They know they're in Baltimore. They're looking for Bucky, and that could have maybe script wise could have made it a little bit better. That's how they found them, just in the middle of the street, because they were, someone could have called the cops on them too, like Isaiah or Levi could have called the cops. It would have been weird, but to see them do that. But
just real quick, one more thing. It could have worked too because but Sam was so pissed off because he did not know about Isaiah. And when he asked him a question, Bucky didn't answer. And he's like, "I asked you a question, Bucky." It should have extended that argument, and like one of y'all said, he should have pushed him and be like, it should have been like, I'm not saying they should have like rolled around in garbage. But it could have been some type of exchange and physicality, like, hey, I'm talking to you or something like, it should have escalated. That would have warranted, the police interaction, to me, in my opinion. But the way it went down, I'm just like,
Yeah, well, and again, we'll see what the rest of the social commentary, because I believe there's going to be more of it in the show, and I welcome it, and I want to see how they handle it. And again, I'm not from Baltimore. I don't know if there's cops on every corner of the street. I did watch The Wire, and I know those cops were corrupt in that show, and you know, there's Baltimore incidents that's happened over the last 5 years that it kind of maybe explains kind of the police force of a sense. But yeah, we'll see what the rest of the show has to offer in regards to social commentary and, you know, the bank scene into this, and then we'll see what comes next week and see if it's handled maybe a little bit differently thematically. But again, great discussion, and I appreciate you guys you know, having it with me, because this is what I love, these topics here. But